He was my best friend's boyfriend. The one she laughed with, kissed in front of me, and bragged about like he was her prize. And me. I was just the girl in the background, the shadow she never let shine. But when their love story shattered, he turned to me. Now I have to ask myself, was I finally seen for who I am? Or am I only living in her leftovers? The world had always loved Charlotte Blake. She had that kind of beauty people didn't just look at, but stopped for. She had honey-colored hair that caught the sunlight like strands of gold, a laugh that could fill a room, and the sort of presence that made strangers think they already knew her. Even when she walked into the dullest of places, a library, a classroom, a crowded bar, the atmosphere shifted. People noticed her. They leaned closer, wanting to be part of her orbit. And then there was me. Lily Devon. If Charlotte was the sun, then I was the shadow cast behind her. I didn't mind it most of the time. After all, she was my best friend. I'd known her since we were children. When she smiled at me, I felt like I mattered. But when we were together, which was almost always, I was invisible to everyone else. The truth? I had grown used to it. But things started to change the day Gabriel Smith appeared in our lives. We were at a small university cafe, books spread out on the table, when Charlotte first pointed him out. "See that guy?" she whispered, leaning across the table. Her eyes sparkled with mischief. I followed her gaze. A tall man stood by the counter, ordering coffee. He had dark brown hair that curled slightly at the edges, like he'd run his fingers through it in a rush. His shoulders were broad, his posture relaxed but confident, and there was a quiet seriousness in the way he studied the menu even though it was only a list of drinks. I nodded. "Yeah, what about him?" Charlotte smirked. "He's gorgeous. And guess what? He's in my design class." I glanced at him again. Gorgeous was a word Charlotte used often, but in this case, I couldn't deny she was right. He had that kind of face that seemed carved with careful thought, sharp jawline, kind eyes. But what struck me wasn't just his looks, it was the way he seemed unaware of the attention he drew. "What's his name?" I asked. "Gabriel Smith." Charlotte said his name like it already belonged to her. I smiled faintly and went back to my notes. I knew how this would go. Charlotte had a way of turning crushes into something more. She wasn't just admired, she was pursued, adored, envied. People fell for her easily, and she rarely had to do more than smile. Sure enough, 2 weeks later, Gabriel and Charlotte were inseparable. At first, I thought it was just another one of Charlotte's fleeting romances. But it wasn't. Gabriel wasn't like the others who orbited her. He was steady, thoughtful. When he looked at Charlotte, there was sincerity in his gaze, as if he didn't just see her beauty but everything else inside her too. And Charlotte, who usually grew bored of attention quickly, seemed truly taken by him. I would sit with them at times, pretending not to notice the way Gabriel's arm always found its way around her shoulders, or the way she leaned into him with a smile that belonged to no one else. And me. I stayed silent, smiling when expected, laughing when appropriate. But there was one night, one small, dangerous night, when my heart betrayed me. We had gone out for pizza, the three of us. Charlotte had excused herself to the bathroom, and for a moment, it was just Gabriel and me at the table. He looked tired. Not physically, but in a deeper way. His eyes lingered on the menu though he'd already ordered. "You okay?" I asked gently. He blinked, almost surprised that I'd spoken. Then he smiled faintly. "Yeah, just a long week." There was something about that smile. It wasn't the dazzling kind he gave Charlotte. It was softer, almost vulnerable. "You work too much," I said before I could stop myself. He chuckled. "Maybe. But I love it. Architecture it's like building a dream you can walk into." I smiled, caught by the poetry of his words. "That's beautiful." He shrugged, embarrassed. "Sorry. I sound pretentious." "You don't." For the briefest second, his eyes held mine. And in that silence, I felt seen. Really seen. Then Charlotte returned, full of energy, and his gaze immediately shifted back to her. The moment was gone. And I reminded myself, he was hers, not mine. But deep down, that tiny moment lingered. And it would grow, little by little, into something I never planned for. It's strange, the way love works. You don't plan it. You don't ask for it. It creeps in slowly, hidden behind friendship, laughter, and stolen glances. That's how it was with me and Gabriel. He belonged to Charlotte. Everyone knew that. And yet, somewhere in the silence of my heart, something dangerous began to bloom. One afternoon, Charlotte dragged me to the park where Gabriel had promised to meet her. We sat on a bench while she reapplied lipstick from a tiny gold compact. "Do you think he likes this color?" she asked, smacking her lips. I shrugged. "He probably doesn't notice things like that." Charlotte scoffed. "Of course he notices. Gabriel notices everything. That's what makes him different." I stayed quiet. She wasn't wrong. He did notice everything, the way she tilted her head when she laughed, the way she hummed when she was happy. But I also remembered the way he noticed me that night at the pizza place, when he saw through my quietness and smiled at me like I mattered. And that was the problem. Gabriel arrived, his usual calm presence grounding the chaos of Charlotte's energy. He kissed her cheek, his hand brushing hers with a familiarity that made my stomach twist. "Sorry I'm late," he said, sitting down beside her. "The studio kept me longer than I thought." "You work too much," Charlotte teased, echoing my own words from before. She tugged at his sleeve playfully. He laughed, but his eyes flickered briefly to me. A small, almost unnoticeable flicker, like he remembered I had said the same thing once. I looked away quickly. As the afternoon passed, I watched them. I always watched them. And every time, my heart betrayed me just a little more. There was a warmth in the way Gabriel treated Charlotte, patience in his voice, admiration in his gaze. But what struck me wasn't just how much he loved her. It was how much I wanted to be loved like that. And I knew, deep down, that I never would be. Not by him. Later that week, I found myself alone with Charlotte in her room. She was sprawled across her bed, scrolling through her phone. "Gabriel's so different from the others," she said suddenly. "He actually listens. He's serious. You know, he might even be the one." I forced a smile. "That's great, Charlotte." She glanced at me, frowning. "You don't sound happy for me." "I am," I lied quickly. "Really, I am. He's good for you." Charlotte studied me for a moment, then shrugged and went back to her phone. But my heart was screaming. Because the truth was, every word she spoke about Gabriel made me ache. Not because I didn't want her to be happy, but because I wanted to be the one who made him smile that way. One night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I whispered into the dark. "I wish I could be seen." It wasn't jealousy. Not really. It was longing. To be noticed. To be loved with the same intensity Gabriel gave Charlotte. But I knew wishes like mine never came true. At least, not then. Because for now, Gabriel Smith only loved my best friend. It happened on an ordinary Tuesday. Charlotte was the one who called me, her voice sharp through the phone. "He's so stubborn, Lily," she snapped. I told him I wasn't going to rearrange my schedule just to fit his ridiculous plans, and he acted like I'd committed some crime. I pressed the phone to my ear, glancing at the pile of assignments on my desk. I'd been halfway through typing an essay, but when Charlotte called, everything else usually stopped. "What happened exactly?" I asked softly. "I don't know," she said, sighing. He was talking about his future, houses he wants to design, cities he wants to move to, the kind of life he sees for himself. And then he looked at me, like I was supposed to be excited about it too. But I told him I don't want to live in his little architect fantasy. I have my own dreams. Why can't he understand that? I hesitated. Maybe he just wanted to share his vision with you. That's not a bad thing. Charlotte groaned dramatically. You sound like him. And with that, she hung up. I didn't hear from her again until 2 days later. But instead of Charlotte calling, it was Gabriel. Lily, he said when I picked up, his voice rougher than usual. Is Charlotte with you? No, I said, frowning. Why? Did something happen? There was silence. Then he exhaled, a tired, heavy sound. She ended it, he said. My heart skipped. What? She told me it was over. Just like that. I pressed my fingers against my temple, trying to process. Charlotte always had a dramatic streak, but I hadn't expected her to throw away Gabriel so easily. I'm sorry, Gabriel, I whispered. His voice cracked faintly. Yeah, me too. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Gabriel, about the way his voice had broken when he told me, about the emptiness he must have been feeling. It wasn't my place to care so deeply. He wasn't mine to worry about. And yet, when I closed my eyes, all I could see was him, sitting alone somewhere, carrying a weight that Charlotte had tossed aside. The next evening, there was a knock on my door. When I opened it, Gabriel stood there. His hair was messy, his shirt untucked, and there was a hollow look in his eyes that broke something inside me. Can I come in? He asked quietly. I nodded and stepped aside. He sat on the couch while I made tea, the silence between us heavy but not uncomfortable. When I returned and set the cup in front of him, he managed a small smile. Thanks, he murmured. For a long while, he just held the cup, not drinking. Then finally, he said, She didn't even look back, Lily. Not once. I sank into the armchair opposite him, my chest tightening. I don't know what to say. There's nothing to say, he said, his eyes fixed on the floor. I loved her. And she just walked away. I swallowed hard. The words slipped out before I could stop them. She doesn't know what she's lost. His eyes lifted, meeting mine. For the first time, there was no Charlotte between us, just him and me, sitting in the silence of my living room. Something flickered in his gaze. And I felt it again. That dangerous, forbidden pull. From that night on, Gabriel called me often. Sometimes late at night when he couldn't sleep, sometimes in the morning when the world felt too heavy. And each time, I answered. Each time, I listened. I told myself it was harmless, that I was just being a friend. But deep down, I knew. The more I became his confidant, the deeper I was falling into something I shouldn't. It was strange, how quickly Gabriel and I built a rhythm of our own. At first, it was simple things, a quick coffee after class, a walk across campus, a late-night call that stretched longer than either of us intended. But soon, it became something more. He started noticing things about me. The way I always carried a notebook, scribbling thoughts when I thought no one was looking. The way I hummed softly under my breath when I cooked. The way I tapped my fingers when I was nervous. No one had ever noticed those things before. Not even Charlotte. One evening, we sat by the river. The city lights shimmered on the water, reflecting in ripples. Gabriel leaned back against the bench, his hands tucked into his jacket. You're easy to talk to, he said suddenly. I smiled faintly. You're just saying that. No, he said, his gaze serious. With you, it's different. I don't feel like I have to pretend. The words sank deep into me, warm and dangerous. I looked away quickly, staring at the water. I'm glad you feel that way. Silence lingered between us. The kind of silence that wasn't empty, but heavy with things unspoken. Another time, we were in my kitchen, cooking together because he'd insisted he needed something distracting. He chopped vegetables while I stirred the sauce. Our shoulders brushed once, then again, and each time, my breath caught just a little. You're really good at this, he said, nodding at the pan. I laughed softly. It's just pasta, Gabriel. Yeah, but you make it feel like more. Like it matters. I froze at his words, my spoon hovering above the pot. Did he realize what he was saying? Did he mean it the way it sounded? I dared to glance at him. He wasn't looking at me, just calmly chopping, as if he hadn't just sent my heart racing. But it wasn't all lightness. Every time I felt the warmth of his attention, guilt clawed at me. Charlotte was still my best friend. Even if she had walked away from him, even if she treated him like he was disposable, part of me still felt the weight of betrayal. And yet, I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop wanting to be near him. I couldn't stop wishing he would look at me the way he used to look at her. One night, as we walked home from the library, Gabriel slowed his steps. "Lily," he said softly. "Yeah." His eyes lingered on me for a moment. Then he shook his head. "Nothing. Forget it." I frowned. "No, tell me." He hesitated. His voice was low when he finally spoke. I don't know what I would have done these past weeks if you weren't here." My chest tightened. "You would have managed." "Maybe," he said. "But it wouldn't have been the same. You make everything feel lighter." I looked away quickly, afraid he would see everything in my eyes. Afraid he would see how much I wanted him. That night, when I lay in bed, I whispered into the dark again. Not "I wish I could be seen." But this time, he's starting to see me. And that was both the most beautiful and the most terrifying truth of all. The first time Charlotte came back after the breakup, she looked brighter than ever. She showed up at my apartment unannounced, bursting through the door with the kind of energy only she could carry. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled, her lips painted crimson, and her perfume filled the room before she even sat down. "Miss me?" she grinned, tossing her bag onto the sofa. I closed my laptop and managed a smile. "It's only been a few weeks, Charlotte." A few weeks too long. She stretched her legs out, examining her polished nails. "You'll never guess what's happened." I didn't have to guess. I knew that gleam in her eyes. "You've met someone," I said quietly. Her grin widened. "Of course. His name's Ethan. Tall, handsome, and ridiculously rich. He drives a Mercedes." "Lily." "A Mercedes." I nodded, trying to keep my face neutral. "That's nice." She tilted her head, studying me. "Don't I sound thrilled enough?" "You sound very thrilled," I said gently. Charlotte smirked. "Good. Because his everything Gabriel wasn't. Fun. Generous. He doesn't spend all his time drawing buildings no one cares about." My chest tightened. I bit my tongue, fighting the urge to defend Gabriel. But Charlotte wasn't done. She leaned back, sighing dramatically. "Honestly, Gabriel was sweet, but he was a mistake. Too serious, too boring. I don't know what I saw in him." I shifted uncomfortably. "You loved him once." "Love," she scoffed. "I thought I did. But I could never actually settle with someone like him." "Come on, Lily. You know me better than that." I forced a smile, but inside, something cracked. Because while she dismissed him like yesterday's news, I thought of all the late-night calls, the quiet confessions, the way Gabriel's voice softened when he said my name. Charlotte didn't see him. Not really. And yet, he had loved her more than anything. A few days later, Charlotte invited me to dinner with her and Ethan. Against my better judgment, I went. The restaurant was expensive, filled with crystal glasses and golden light. Ethan was charming in a polished, detached way. He spoke about his business ventures, his travels, his cars. Charlotte laughed at all his jokes, her hand resting possessively on his arm. At one point, she glanced at me with that familiar playful smirk. "You're awfully quiet, Lily. Thinking about someone?" Heat rose to my cheeks. "No. Just listening." Charlotte's smirk widened. "I know what it is. You're jealous." "Charlotte." "Don't deny it. You've always been too plain to catch someone like Ethan's eye, haven't you? But don't worry, not everyone can be dazzling." Her words sliced cleanly, but she laughed like it was harmless. Ethan chuckled too, as if it were some private joke between them. I smiled weakly, excusing myself to the restroom before my eyes betrayed me. That night, when I walked home alone, Gabriel called. "Lily, are you okay? You sound off." I tried to steady my voice. "I'm fine." "Don't lie to me," he said softly. "Please." The tears I'd been holding back broke free. "She called me plain." His voice grew sharp. "She what?" I swallowed hard. "It doesn't matter. She's always been like that." "No, Lily," he said, anger lacing his words. "It does matter. You're not plain. You're the most genuine person I've ever known. She doesn't get to treat you that way." My heart clenched. And for the first time, I realized Gabriel wasn't just defending me because he was kind. He was defending me because I mattered to him. And that thought terrified me almost as much as it thrilled me. It happened 2 nights later. Gabriel had come over again. We sat on the couch, the soft glow of the lamp casting shadows on the walls. The air between us was heavy, thick with all the things we hadn't said. He was quiet that evening, staring at the floor, his hands clasped together. "What's on your mind?" I asked gently. He looked at me, his eyes darker than usual. "You." My breath caught. "Me." He nodded slowly. "You've been there for me when you didn't have to. You've listened to me at my worst. And every time Charlotte tried to make me feel small, you reminded me I wasn't." I shook my head quickly. "Gabriel, don't." "I used to think she was everything," he said, his voice raw. "But now, when I think about who's really seen me, who's actually understood me, it's you, Lily. It's always been you." My chest ached. "Don't say that. You loved her. You still love her." His jaw tightened. "I loved an idea of her. But you've been real all along." Silence hung between us. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would break free. "Gabriel," I whispered, "this isn't right. She's my best friend." "I don't care," he said fiercely, leaning closer. "I can't keep pretending I don't feel this." And before I could stop him, his lips were on mine. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate, aching, as if he'd been holding back for weeks and finally broke. I froze for a second, my mind screaming warnings. This is wrong. This is betrayal. This is Charlotte's Gabriel. But then my body betrayed me. I kissed him back. The world outside melted away, the city, the night, Charlotte, all of it. All that existed was the warmth of his mouth, the roughness of his hands as they framed my face, the quiet groan in his throat like he'd found something he'd been searching for too long. When we finally pulled apart, we were both breathless. His forehead rested against mine. "Tell me you didn't feel that." I couldn't speak. My lips still tingled, my heart still raced. "Lily," he whispered, his voice breaking. "Please. Tell me you felt it too." I closed my eyes. I did. The confession slipped out, fragile and dangerous. "But Gabriel, what if I'm just a consolation prize? What if you only see me because she's gone?" His hands tightened on mine. "No. Don't ever say that. I see you, Lily. I should have seen you long ago." Tears pricked my eyes. For so long, I'd wished to be seen, to be noticed, to be loved. And now, sitting there with Gabriel's hands holding mine, I realized the wish had finally come true. But wishes always came with a price. And I had no idea what the cost of this one would be. It started with a text. "Charlotte, we need to talk. Tonight. All of us." My stomach dropped as I read the words. All of us. That could only mean one thing. She wanted Gabriel there too. I hesitated before replying, my fingers trembling. "Lily, okay. Where?" "Charlotte, my place. 7 p.m. sharp. Don't be late." When I arrived at Charlotte's apartment later that evening, she was already glowing, not with love, but with something sharper, more dangerous. Her hair was curled to perfection, her lipstick a bold scarlet, and she wore a dress that shimmered under the lights. "Lily," she said smoothly, pulling me into a hug that felt like a trap. "You look sweet. As always." "Thanks," I murmured. Her eyes glittered. "Gabriel's on his way." My chest tightened. I hadn't told her anything. She didn't know about the kiss. She couldn't. And yet, the way she looked at me made me feel like she already suspected. Minutes later, the knock came. When Gabriel walked in, he froze slightly at the sight of Charlotte. She gave him her brightest smile, as though she hadn't broken his heart weeks ago. "Gabriel," she purred. "It's been too long." "Charlotte," he said stiffly, his hands shoved into his pockets. The tension was suffocating. We sat around her dining table, but it wasn't dinner. There were no plates, no food. Just three people circling an invisible fire. Charlotte leaned back in her chair, sipping wine. "You know, Gabriel, I've been thinking about us." He exhaled sharply. "There is no us, Charlotte." Her smile never faltered. "Is that what you tell yourself? Because I remember something different." "You ended it," he snapped. "I made a mistake," she said lightly, though her eyes were cold. "I thought I wanted more, but then I realized no one knows me like you do." Gabriel's jaw tightened. "No, Charlotte. You realized no one loved you like I did." Silence followed. And then, Charlotte's gaze slid to me. "Funny, isn't it, Lily? How people always crawl back when they realize what they've lost." Her words burned. She knew. Maybe not everything, but enough. Gabriel leaned forward, his voice low. "Charlotte, don't." "Don't what?" she asked innocently. "Don't mention that my best friend has been playing comfort to you? That she's been waiting in the shadows, hoping you'd notice her once I was gone." I froze, my heart slamming in my chest. "Charlotte, stop." Her smile widened. "Why? Am I wrong?" I wanted to deny it, to tell her she was imagining things. But the memory of Gabriel's lips on mine burned too vividly. Gabriel's voice cut through the air. "You are wrong. Because Lily isn't waiting for anything. She's not you. She doesn't need to perform or manipulate to be worth loving." Charlotte blinked, her mask slipping for just a second. "Worth loving," she echoed, her voice sharp. The words hung heavy, and for the first time, Charlotte's smile vanished. The storm broke that night. Charlotte's face hardened, her voice rising. "So it's true, then. You've moved on to her." Gabriel didn't flinch. "I've opened my eyes." "Don't pretend this is noble," she spat. "You're just clinging to the nearest thing when I left. She's convenient. That's all." "Don't call her that." Gabriel's voice thundered, shaking the air. I sat frozen between them, my hands trembling. This was the moment I dreaded, the collision of everything we'd been hiding. Charlotte turned her glare on me. "Lily, how could you? After everything? I trusted you." Tears stung my eyes. "I never meant." "You never meant," she snapped. "You've always wanted what I had. Don't deny it. You've been jealous your whole life. Watching me. Wishing you were me." Her words pierced deep, not because they were true, but because part of me feared they might be. "Charlotte, stop," I whispered. But she didn't. "Did you like it, Lily? Did you like kissing the man who used to worship me? Did you imagine stealing my place?" I gasped, my face burning. Gabriel stood abruptly, his fists clenched. "That's enough," he said, his voice shaking with fury. "You don't get to tear her down just because you can't stand not being adored anymore." Charlotte's laughter rang out, cruel and sharp. "Adored? Please. She'll never be me, Gabriel. You'll regret this. She's nothing compared to me." I couldn't breathe. And in that moment, I broke. I grabbed my bag and stumbled toward the door. Lily, Gabriel called, but I didn't turn back. I ran down the stairs, out into the cold night air, my chest aching. When I finally stopped under the glow of a streetlight, tears streamed down my face. I had dreamed of being seen. I had dreamed of being loved. But not like this. Not in the ruins of Charlotte's pride. Gabriel found me hours later, sitting on a bench by the park. His hair was windswept, his breathing heavy from searching. "Lily," he said, kneeling in front of me. "Please, listen." I shook my head. "I can't. This is too much. She hates me now. And I don't even know if you—" "If I what?" he urged. "If you love me," I whispered, my voice breaking. "Or if I'm just the safe choice because she hurt you." His eyes widened, pain flashing across his face. "You think you're second best to me?" "I don't know what to think," I cried. "All I've ever been is her shadow. How do I know I'm not just her shadow to you too?" He grabbed my hands, his grip firm, desperate. "Because when I look at you, Lily, I don't see Charlotte's best friend. I don't see her shadow. I see you. The woman who makes me laugh when I've forgotten how. The woman who listens like what I say actually matters. The woman who's been in front of me all along, and I was too blind to notice." Tears blurred my vision. "But what if you wake up tomorrow and realize you don't mean it?" His voice cracked. "Then I'll spend every tomorrow proving to you that I do." For a long time, I said nothing. The night air was cold, the city quiet around us. Finally, I whispered, "I'm scared, Gabriel." He cupped my face gently. "So am I. But I'd rather be scared with you than safe with anyone else." And though my heart still trembled with doubt, part of me believed him. Part of me wanted to believe him so badly that it hurt. It was raining the night I found the letter. The city outside my window was blurred by water streaks, and I sat alone in my room, staring at my phone. Gabriel's name glowed on the screen, his last message unanswered. "Please talk to me. Don't shut me out." But I couldn't bring myself to reply. Not yet. The confrontation with Charlotte had ripped me open. Her words echoed in my mind over and over. "You've always wanted what I had. You're just convenient. You'll never be me." And the terrifying thing was, I feared she was right. That fear sat heavy on my chest as I finally forced myself up, pacing the room, searching for something to occupy my thoughts. My eyes landed on the book Gabriel had left behind weeks ago, a thick sketchbook filled with his architectural drawings. I picked it up, running my fingers over the worn leather cover. He had forgotten it after one of our late-night study sessions, and though I had meant to return it, I hadn't had the chance. I sat on the bed and flipped it open. The pages were filled with lines and shapes, rough drafts of buildings, bridges, and dreamlike spaces. His handwriting was scrawled in the margins, notes, thoughts, little reminders. It felt like stepping into his mind. And then, tucked between two pages, I found it. A folded piece of paper. I pulled it out slowly, my heart already racing. The ink was smudged, the handwriting unmistakably his. "Charlotte," it began. I froze. My throat tightened as I read the words. "I don't know how to move forward without you. You were my light, my inspiration, the reason behind every design I put on paper. I don't know how to imagine a future that doesn't have you in it. You say I'm too serious, too small for your dreams, but don't you see? You were my dream. And without you, everything feels meaningless." Tears blurred my vision. I forced myself to keep reading, my hands shaking. Maybe I was foolish to think I could hold on to someone like you. You're fire, and I was trying to build a home around flames that were never meant to stay. But I still love you. I'll probably always love you, no matter how much it hurts. The letter ended there. Unsigned, unsent. I dropped it onto the bed, my chest aching. This was the truth I had been dreading. He had loved Charlotte so deeply that she had been his world, his dream, his everything. And me? What was I but the girl left behind? The shadow who picked up the pieces when the queen walked away? My phone buzzed again, Gabriel's name lighting up the screen. I couldn't bear it. I turned it face down, crawled into bed, and curled into myself as the rain poured harder outside. The truth was undeniable. No matter what he said now, no matter how much he looked at me with those steady, kind eyes, I would always be second best. The next morning, I avoided him. I ignored his calls, his texts, his knocks at my door. But Gabriel didn't stop trying. That evening, he caught me outside the library, his hair damp from running through the drizzle. "Lily," he called, breathless. "Please. Don't keep doing this." I froze, hugging my books to my chest. "I don't want to talk right now." "Yes, you do," he said firmly. "You're just scared." I turned sharply, my voice shaking. "You wrote her a letter, Gabriel. You said she was your dream. That you'd always love her. How am I supposed to compete with that?" His face went pale. You found it." Tears filled my eyes. "I wasn't looking for it. But I did. And now I know the truth." "The truth." He stepped closer, desperation in his voice. "Lily, that letter was written when I was broken. When she walked out and I didn't know who I was without her. I never sent it because even then, deep down, I knew it wasn't real anymore. I loved her idea, not her." I shook my head. "It doesn't matter. You loved her more than you could ever love me." He reached for me, but I stepped back, my whole body trembling. "Lily, please," he begged. "Don't let that letter decide what we could be." I turned away, my tears falling freely, because in that moment, I wasn't sure I could believe him. And maybe I was too afraid to try. Days passed in silence. I avoided Gabriel. He stopped calling after a while, though I knew he was still nearby, waiting for a chance. Charlotte had disappeared into Ethan's world, no longer knocking at my door, no longer mocking me. And yet, the emptiness inside me only grew. One evening, I stood before the mirror in my small bedroom, staring at my reflection. Plain. That was the word Charlotte had used. The word I had always secretly feared. But as I looked at myself, my messy brown hair, my tired eyes, the faint freckles across my nose, I realized something. Plain wasn't the word Gabriel used. When he looked at me, his gaze had been steady, soft, full of something Charlotte had never cared to give. Not fire, not frenzy, but depth, realness. The kind of love that wasn't about shining brighter than anyone else, but about being seen. And I knew then, I couldn't keep running. 2 nights later, Gabriel found me. I was walking home from the bookstore when a voice called my name. "Lily." I turned, my heart skipping. He stood there on the sidewalk, breathless, his eyes locked on mine. Before I could speak, he closed the distance between us. "I can't keep quiet," he said, his voice trembling. "I've tried to respect your silence, but I can't. I love you, Lily. Not because you're Charlotte's friend, not because you were there when she left. I love you. Every quiet part of you. Every small detail. You're the one who makes me want to build a future, not her." Tears welled in my eyes. "But how do I know it's real? How do I know you won't wake up one day and regret choosing me?" He stepped closer, his voice fierce. "Because I've already lived with regret, Lily. I know what it feels like to love the wrong person so much it nearly destroys you. And I will never make that mistake again. Not when I've finally found the right one." My lips trembled. "And you really think that's me?" He cupped my face, his thumb brushing away a tear. "I don't just think it. I know it. You are not second best. You are not her shadow. You're the one who makes me whole. You're the one I see, Lily. Always." The dam inside me broke. And for the first time, I let myself believe him. He kissed me then, not with desperation, but with certainty. It was slower, deeper, filled with a quiet intensity that made every nerve in my body tremble. This wasn't the reckless kiss of stolen moments. This was a promise. When we finally pulled apart, I whispered, "I'm scared." He smiled softly. "So am I. But we'll be scared together." Weeks later, Charlotte tried to call. I didn't answer. Because for once, I wasn't living in her world. I was living in mine. And when Gabriel held my hand as we walked down the street, the world didn't stop, people didn't stare, and no spotlight followed us. But none of that mattered. Because after years of being unseen, overlooked, dismissed, I had finally been seen. And for the first time in my life, that was enough. What would you do if the man who once loved your best friend started looking at you like you were his whole world? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more stories that will keep your heart racing.